Hi, Colleen. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Mrs. O'Brien?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for coming into my office this morning. Um, so I'm sure you remember from the last staff meeting that we were talking about this unit of instruction and having pre-test and post-test.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a new state requirement that we are actually looking at testing data in a unit of instruction so that we can monitor our students' project and your effectiveness as a teacher. And I know that this is not something our district has been practicing much, so it seems new. But I was looking at your unit of instruction, and you chose to do it on the To Kill a Mockingbird unit, and your pre and post assessment. I noticed several things about. First, your assessment's very thorough. I think that it's an appropriately difficult assessment for a full class period. For pre and post assessment both. However, I think most of your questions for a junior level class seem to be really low DOK levels, 1 and 2 primarily. And it kind of seems like you're trying to assess whether the kids are memorizing the plot, which would be impossible for any kid to succeed on a pre-test on. And hopefully by the post-test they'd know a lot of the major plot elements. But it kind of seems like they might be too specific and not directly tied to objectives. So is there any specific reason you chose the questions you did?
Yes, I found that I can't really tell what this group in particular, if they're doing their reading or not, unless I put in those really specific questions, because otherwise they'll just ramble on some answer about a satire or whatever, trying to get a freebie answer, and I feel like they're not reading.
Sure.
Unless I've really checked their knowledge on the
Right.
specific details of the novel.
Right. Yeah, I would have been one of those kids in high school. So I'm positive that there's probably good kids, that are not reading the material. So we can talk a little bit after we finish talking about the assessment, how to deal with that problem, because I think there's a lot of effective strategies. What are some questions that you could maybe ask to still know if they read the book, and then additionally maybe amp up their critical thinking skills, make it maybe a DOK 3 question? And one thing that I might think about is something looking at one of the bigger themes in the book. It's one of my favorite books, so I was excited to talk about this to you. But even doing an essay type assessment where you're asking, why is the book titled To Kill a Mockingbird? Because there's a lot of different things that could go into that answer where it would be really obvious the kids read the book, because there's not a lot about actually killing a mockingbird. So.
Well, and the only worry I have with doing something like that is I'm worried about different interpretations, and then not necessarily just my own interpretation, but grading and people thinking that I'm not being objective.
Oh, so it's too subjective.
Yes, that's what I'm concerned about.
Sure. Well, we have. I know that the English department's been working on rubrics for short essay answers, and so maybe that's something in the future we can work toward, thinking about making that process a little bit less subjective, to where you can point to specific indicators about maybe how much evidence they include for a specific answer, even if it differs from another student. So maybe we're just not quite there yet in the tools we're giving you as a teacher, and that could be one of our professional development goals as a department as well. So yeah, that's a really, really good point, because there's a lot of possible answers to a question like that. So about the kids not quite reading what they're supposed to read, have there been any strategies that you've found successful with other classes that maybe don't seem to apply to this one?
I've had other classes do very well with reading out loud, and they get very into it. They get into character. They use voices. This class just does not enjoy that. I have too many who pass.
Okay.
Or and then I'm not sure that they're doing their reading even in class.
Well, this might seem like a little bit of something that maybe is too juvenile for juniors, but you may, especially like if you feel good about their ability to pay attention and listen in any context, you might consider reading out loud to them a little bit, and then maybe getting them into some leading questions that get them interested in the rest of the reading assignment, to where that they will be more likely to want to do it on their own. And also, if you give them a little bit more independence with discussing, like if you're not giving them as much information, they might feel uncomfortable with the silence when you are just sitting waiting for their answers or prompts. I know that when I used to teach, I was occasionally struggled with wait time. I would give them 30 seconds to answer a question. If they didn't produce it, then I'd go ahead and produce it for them. And if it's a stare down situation, some kids feel uncomfortable enough that they'll go ahead and maybe show you that they are reading, and they might just, since it's a shy group, they might feel uncomfortable talking initially. Or you could just do like an entrance slip where they kind of talk about what they read last night, and you can see on their entrance slip exactly what they actually did read, and maybe get a better assessment if some of them are reading half of the book or all of the book, or some of them aren't reading any of it. And outside of that, I think that trying to find some strategies would be a good thing, but I think that since our assessments are supposed to be objective based, we need to eliminate some of those DOK1 questions, because if we're not eliminating the questions, then we're just assessing whether or not they read the book instead of actually
Comprehending the book.
comprehending the book or getting the skills, like if they're effectively looking at theme or character development instead of what happened in To Kill a Mockingbird, which won't matter much in 10 years from the time they graduate. So are there any other questions or things you...
No, I'd be interested to know when we'd be working on the rubric like that, because
Sure.
I would like to sit in, if not contribute.
Oh, I'd like for you to contribute. That'd be great. We are probably going to meet as a building leadership team from 2 weeks from now, and I'll propose that, and we'll probably get some subs for you guys and go ahead and make that a priority. Since we're going to be assessing these kids, we need to have a tool to do it sooner than later.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
And we will we'll look at this particular assessment again, if we can try to kind of adjust some of the questions, and before you actually teach it. When do you plan on teaching this particular unit?
It's going to be in the next week.
Okay. So maybe in a week we can meet again, and you can just look at maybe amping up some of your DOKs.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss O'Brien.